Mother-in-law makes demands about birth. That is exactly what happened when my future mother-in-law decided she had more rights to my delivery room than I did. She threatened to sneak into the hospital, demanded daily photo updates, and turned my pregnancy into her personal power trip. My name is Cassandra, I am 26 years old, and I am currently 39 weeks pregnant with my first child. When I first met Trevor 3 years ago at a bookstore in Sacramento, I genuinely believed I had found my forever person. He was browsing the parenting section, which I found endearing since he did not even have kids yet. He told me later he was researching for his sister who had just announced her pregnancy. That thoughtfulness, that consideration for family, made my heart skip a beat. We spent 2 hours in that little cafe next to the bookstore talking about everything from our childhood dreams to our fears about the future. Trevor had this way of listening that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. His eyes would light up when I talked about my passion for teaching kindergarten, and he shared stories about his work as a physical therapist helping people recover from injuries. Everything felt so natural, so right. Our relationship blossomed quickly but steadily. Within 6 months, I was spending most weekends at his apartment, and he had a drawer at my place filled with his clothes. We took weekend trips to the coast, explored farmers markets together, and spent lazy Sunday mornings reading different sections of the newspaper while sharing coffee and croissants. Trevor introduced me to hiking, something I had never been interested in before, and I got him hooked on cooking elaborate brunches from scratch. We complemented each other perfectly. Meeting his family felt like the natural next step. Trevor had always spoken fondly of his parents, describing his father Robert as a quiet, gentle man who worked as an accountant and loved woodworking in his spare time. His mother Diane was a retired nurse who had dedicated 30 years to pediatric care. She volunteered at the local animal shelter and grew the most beautiful roses I had ever seen. When Trevor first brought me to their house for Sunday dinner, I was nervous but excited. The house was warm and inviting, filled with family photos and the smell of Diane's famous pot roast. That first dinner went wonderfully. Diane asked me thoughtful questions about my teaching career and seemed genuinely interested in my answers. Robert showed me his workshop in the garage, explaining his latest project of building a rocking chair for when they eventually had grandchildren. The way they looked at each other after 32 years of marriage gave me hope for my own future. Diane even sent me home with leftovers and a small cutting from one of her rose bushes. I planted it in my garden, and it bloomed beautifully that spring. For the first 2 years of our relationship, everything with his family remained smooth. Diane would call occasionally to check in, always respectful of our time and space. She remembered important dates like my birthday and the anniversary of my mother's passing. When Trevor and I got engaged last Christmas, she cried tears of joy and immediately started talking about how excited she was to officially welcome me into the family. She even offered to help with wedding planning, but in a supportive way, not pushy or demanding. I felt so grateful to be gaining not just a husband, but a loving extended family. The shift began subtly when we announced my pregnancy in March. At first, Diane's reaction seemed normal and expected. She hugged us both, cried happy tears, and immediately started talking about all the things she wanted to do as a grandmother. She mentioned wanting to babysit, to teach the baby how to garden, to share family recipes when the child got older. All of this felt sweet and appropriate. But then she started making comments about the delivery itself. During a casual conversation about my due date, Diane mentioned that she hoped I would consider having the baby at the same hospital where Trevor was born. When I explained that my doctor practiced at a different facility and I was comfortable with my choice, she seemed disappointed but did not push the issue initially. Then she started asking detailed questions about my birth plan. Who would be in the delivery room? How long did I plan to stay in the hospital? When would family be allowed to visit? I answered honestly, explaining that Trevor and I had discussed these decisions carefully. We wanted privacy during the actual delivery, with just the two of us and our medical team present. We planned to stay in the hospital for the standard 2 days, and after we went home, we wanted at least 1 or 2 weeks to adjust to life with a newborn before having any visitors. I emphasized that this was not personal against anyone, but rather about creating the calmest, least stressful environment possible for both me and the baby. Diane's expression changed when I explained our visitor policy. Her smile became forced, and she nodded slowly while saying she understood, but something in her eyes told me she absolutely did not understand at all. She asked if we had told my mother the same thing, and when I confirmed that yes, my mom was also aware that she would not be visiting immediately after the birth, Diane seemed slightly appeased. But I could tell she was not happy about our decision. Over the following weeks, Diane began making subtle comments designed to change our minds. She would mention how she had been present when her sister gave birth to her nephew, and what a beautiful experience it had been for the whole family. She talked about how important it was for grandparents to bond with babies immediately, citing articles she claimed to have read about infant development. When these indirect approaches did not work, she started having private conversations with Trevor. Trevor told me about these conversations reluctantly, clearly uncomfortable with being caught in the middle. According to him, his mother had started calling him separately to express her concerns about our birth plan. She told him she felt like we were depriving her of an important experience as a new grandmother. She argued that she had waited her whole life for this moment and could not understand why we would want to exclude family from such a joyful occasion. The conversations escalated when Diane proposed a compromise. If we would not allow her in the delivery room, could she at least come to the hospital for just 5 minutes immediately after the birth? She promised she would not stay long or get in the way. She just wanted to see the baby right away and take a few photos. When Trevor explained that we still preferred to wait until we were home and settled, she became more emotional. During one particularly difficult phone call, Diane told Trevor that she felt like we were prioritizing my family over his. She pointed out that my mother lived only 20 minutes away while she lived 3 hours away, suggesting that this geographical difference meant she should get special consideration. She also implied that as Trevor's mother, she should have more say in decisions about her grandchild than I should as the baby's mother. This comment especially bothered me when Trevor reluctantly shared it. The situation reached a breaking point during our last family dinner together, about 2 weeks ago. Diane had invited us over for what she said would be a quiet Sunday meal, just the 4 of us. But as soon as we sat down, she launched into what felt like a prepared speech about the upcoming birth. She announced that she had been thinking about our previous conversations and had come to accept that she would not be allowed in the hospital immediately after delivery. At first, I felt relieved. Maybe she had finally understood our perspective and decided to respect our wishes. But then she continued talking, and my relief turned to disbelief and anger. Diane explained that since she was being deprived of the hospital experience, she had some requests to compensate for what she was missing. She wanted us to call her the moment I went into labor, regardless of the time of day or night. She wanted another call immediately after the baby was born with full details including weight, length, and health status. Most importantly, she wanted us to send her at least 4 photos and 1 video of the baby every single day until she was allowed to visit in person. I sat there staring at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. Trevor looked equally stunned. When he started to respond, Diane held up her hand and said she had already discussed this with him and that he had agreed to her terms. Trevor immediately contradicted her, saying he had never agreed to anything like that. The table fell silent for a long, uncomfortable moment. Diane's face flushed red as she realized her lie had been exposed. Instead of apologizing or backing down, she doubled down on her demands. She said that as the baby's grandmother, she deserved to be kept informed and included. She argued that sending a few photos per day was not an unreasonable request, and that if we truly cared about family, we would want to share our joy with her. I finally found my voice and explained, as calmly as I could, that we planned to share updates and photos with all family members equally through a group chat or family email. We would not be providing special treatment or extra attention to any one person. The early days with a newborn would be challenging enough without the pressure of daily photo shoots and detailed reporting. Diane did not take this well. Her voice raised as she accused me of being selfish and controlling. She said I was keeping her son and grandchild away from her deliberately, and that I was probably being influenced by my own mother who wanted to monopolize access to the baby. None of this was true, but her accusations stung nonetheless. Trevor stepped in at this point, firmly but respectfully telling his mother that her behavior was inappropriate and that she needed to respect the boundaries we had set. He explained that these decisions were made jointly by both of us, not imposed by me alone. He also clarified that my mother was following the exact same rules and expectations as everyone else in our families. Rather than calming down, Diane became even more upset. She stood up from the table and declared that if we were going to be stubborn about this, she would find other ways to meet her grandchild. She said that hospital security could not keep her out if she really wanted to get in, and that she had worked in hospitals long enough to know how to navigate the system. She even suggested she could pretend to be a hospital employee to gain access to the maternity ward. I felt my blood run cold as she spoke. This was not the loving, reasonable woman I had known for 3 years. This was someone who was essentially threatening to violate our privacy and potentially compromise hospital security to get what she wanted. Robert, who had been silent throughout most of the conversation, finally spoke up to tell his wife that she was going too far. She turned on him too, accusing him of not supporting her or caring about their future grandchild. The dinner ended abruptly with Diane storming out of the room. Robert apologized to both of us, explaining that his wife had been under a lot of stress lately and was not thinking clearly. Trevor and I left shortly after, both of us shaken by what had transpired. During the drive home, I could not stop thinking about Diane's threat to breach hospital security. Trevor tried to reassure me that his mother was just emotional and would calm down once she had time to process everything. But I was not convinced. Over the next few days, I found myself constantly worried about what Diane might actually do when I went into labor. Would she really try to sneak into the hospital? Would she cause a scene that could disrupt my delivery or recovery? The stress was affecting my sleep and my overall well-being, which was the exact opposite of what I needed in my final weeks of pregnancy. Trevor noticed my anxiety and tried to address it by having another conversation with his mother. He called her a few days after the dinner to reiterate our boundaries and to ask for her word that she would not try to interfere with our hospital stay. According to Trevor, Diane was calmer during this conversation but still maintained that our rules were unfair and hurtful. She did not explicitly promise to stay away from the hospital, which did nothing to ease my concerns. The situation has left me feeling emotionally exhausted and conflicted. On one hand, I understand that Diane is excited about becoming a grandmother and wants to be involved in this important milestone. On the other hand, her behavior has crossed multiple lines and made me question whether I can trust her to respect other boundaries we might set as parents. I worry about what will happen after the baby is born. If she is this demanding and manipulative about the birth itself, how will she behave when it comes to decisions about childcare, discipline, holidays, and other aspects of our family life? Trevor is caught in an impossible position, trying to balance his loyalty to his mother with his support for me and our growing family. I can see the stress wearing on him too. He loves his mother and wants to maintain their relationship, but he also recognizes that her behavior has been inappropriate and potentially harmful. He has assured me multiple times that he will support whatever decisions I make about the birth and about future interactions with his mother, but I know this whole situation is breaking his heart. I have also been thinking about my own mother throughout this ordeal. My mom passed away from cancer when I was 21, just a few months before I started college. She never got the chance to see me graduate, get engaged, or prepare for motherhood. There are so many moments when I wish I could call her for advice or support, and this is definitely one of them. I think about how excited she would have been about becoming a grandmother, and how she would have handled this situation with Diane. My mother was always excellent at setting boundaries while remaining kind and respectful. She had a way of standing firm on important issues without being cruel or vindictive. I try to channel her strength and wisdom when dealing with difficult people, but sometimes I feel overwhelmed by how much I miss her guidance. I know she would have supported my decision to limit visitors after the birth, and she probably would have had some insight into how to handle Diane's demands without completely destroying the family relationship. As my due date approaches, I find myself feeling a mixture of excitement and dread. I am thrilled about meeting my baby and starting this new chapter of my life with Trevor. But I am also anxious about the potential drama that might unfold if Diane follows through on her threats. I have spoken with my doctor and the hospital staff about my concerns, and they have assured me that they take patient privacy and security very seriously. They have procedures in place to prevent unauthorized visitors from accessing the maternity ward, and they can restrict access to my room if necessary. Still, the fact that I have to worry about this at all feels wrong. This should be one of the happiest and most peaceful times in my life, but instead I am spending energy on managing family conflict and protecting my boundaries. I have started having nightmares about Diane showing up in my hospital room uninvited, or causing a scene in the hallway that disrupts other families. I wake up feeling stressed and emotionally drained, which I know is not good for me or the baby. Trevor has suggested that we consider not telling anyone when I go into labor, so that we can have complete privacy during the delivery and immediate recovery period. We would announce the birth after we are already home and settled. While this approach would solve the immediate problem of unwanted hospital visitors, it feels sad that we have to resort to such measures. It also means that supportive family members who would respect our wishes are being excluded along with the problematic ones. I have been trying to find the right balance between protecting myself and the baby while not completely burning bridges with Trevor's family. I still hope that Diane will come to her senses and realize that her behavior has been inappropriate. Maybe she will apologize and commit to respecting our boundaries going forward. But I am also preparing myself for the possibility that our relationship may never recover from this conflict. One thing that has become clear to me through this experience is how important it is to establish boundaries early in a relationship and to pay attention to how people respond when those boundaries are challenged. For the first 3 years I knew Diane, she seemed like a reasonable and loving person. But as soon as she encountered a situation where she could not get what she wanted, her true colors emerged. She became manipulative, demanding, and even threatening. I think about other situations where people might test boundaries in the future. What will happen when the baby starts eating solid food and Diane wants to give foods that we do not approve of? What about when our child is old enough for sleepovers and Diane wants overnight visits that we are not comfortable with? Will she respect our parenting decisions about discipline, screen time, religious education, or other important topics? Based on her current behavior, I have serious doubts. At the same time, I do not want to be the daughter-in-law who completely cuts off her partner's family. I know how important family relationships can be, and I do not want to deprive my child of a relationship with their paternal grandmother if it can be avoided. I also love Trevor deeply and do not want to force him to choose between his mother and his new family. But I also cannot allow Diane's behavior to continue unchecked, especially as we navigate the vulnerable early months of parenthood. I have been reading books and articles about setting boundaries with difficult family members, and many experts recommend a combination of clear communication, consistent consequences, and professional counseling when necessary. I have suggested to Trevor that we might benefit from family therapy to help navigate the situation, and he has agreed to consider it after the baby arrives and we have had time to settle into our new routine. For now, my focus needs to be on staying healthy and prepared for delivery. I am trying to practice stress reduction techniques like meditation and prenatal yoga. I am also leaning on friends and other family members who have been supportive throughout this ordeal. My sister lives across the country but calls regularly to check on me, and several close friends have offered to help with meals and household tasks after the baby arrives. As I write this, I am experiencing occasional contractions that may or may not be the beginning of labor. My hospital bag is packed, and Trevor and I have reviewed our birth plan multiple times. We have decided not to inform anyone when contractions begin, and we will only make announcement calls after the baby is born and we have had some time to bond as a new family. This decision feels right for us, even though I know it may create additional conflict with Diane later. Looking back on this entire experience, I realize that it has taught me important lessons about standing up for myself and protecting my family. Pregnancy and early parenthood are vulnerable times that require extra care and consideration. Anyone who truly loves and supports us should be willing to respect our need for privacy and space during this transition. The fact that Diane has prioritized her own wants over our well-being tells me everything I need to know about her character. I also realize that this conflict has actually strengthened my relationship with Trevor in some ways. Seeing him choose to support me and our unborn child over his mother's demands has reinforced my confidence in our partnership. He has shown me that he is willing to have difficult conversations and make hard choices when necessary. This gives me hope that we will be able to navigate other challenges that arise in our marriage and family life. The situation with Diane remains unresolved as I prepare to give birth. She has not apologized for her behavior or agreed to respect our boundaries. In fact, she has continued to make passive-aggressive comments during the few interactions we have had since that disastrous dinner. She has also been reaching out to other family members to try to build support for her position, which feels like an attempt to manipulate the situation even further. Despite all of this drama and stress, I am trying to hold on to my excitement about becoming a mother. I am eager to meet the little person who has been growing inside me for the past 9 months. I want to focus on the joy and wonder of this experience, rather than the family conflict that has overshadowed it. I am hopeful that once the baby arrives, the love and happiness of that moment will help put everything else into perspective. I am also determined to be the kind of mother and grandmother that my own child deserves. I want to model respect for boundaries, consideration for others, and the ability to put family needs ahead of personal wants. If and when I become a grandmother someday, I hope I will remember this experience and approach that role with humility and grace rather than entitlement and demands. Whatever happens in the coming days and weeks, I know that Trevor and I will face it together. We have each other, we have a strong foundation of love and mutual respect, and we have clear priorities about what matters most. Our baby will be born into a family that values communication, boundaries, and putting the needs of the most vulnerable members first. That gives me peace, even in the midst of all this uncertainty. As I finish writing this, I can feel another contraction building. This might be it. This might be the beginning of the most important day of my life so far. Whatever challenges await us with Diane and the rest of the family, I am ready to meet my child and begin this incredible journey of parenthood. And when I hold my baby for the first time, I know that all of this drama and conflict will fade into the background, at least temporarily. I am about to become someone's mother, and that responsibility is both thrilling and humbling. I promise to protect this little person from unnecessary stress and conflict, to advocate for their needs even when it is difficult, and to create a home environment filled with love, respect, and security. These are the values I want to pass on, and these are the principles that will guide my decisions as a parent, no matter what anyone else thinks or demands. The contractions are getting stronger now. Trevor is loading the car, and we are about to head to the hospital. I do not know what the next few hours will bring, but I am ready to meet my baby and start the next chapter of our lives. And if Diane tries to interfere or violate our boundaries, she will discover just how fierce a new mother can be when protecting her family.